أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, sisters. Welcome to today's Sister Seeking Salam session. My name is Coach Amina Sayed-Hossen. There's so many Aminas in SSS. So I've got my picture there, but alhamdulillah. Thank you for joining me today. I know it was probably a very long night for all of you, and may Allah accept our du'as and ibadah, and may He grant us the benefit of the reward of finding Laylatul Qadr this Ramadan. May we leave Ramadan having had our sins forgiven completely, and may we have been blessed with an amazing year ahead. Ameen. Now, what I wanted to talk to you about today was, as we're coming to the end of Ramadan, and you notice as you're starting to come towards the end of Ramadan, especially when you've got over that 27th night hurdle, though we want to keep maintaining the strength of our effort and our worship, we start to think about Eid. And then as Eid happens, it's almost like you need to take a break because it's been so intense. You want to start kind of just winding down, kind of finding a little bit more maybe balance where you're not pushing yourself, you're resting. And so when we push so far to one extent, what happens is almost like an elastic band that we almost kind of ping back to the other direction. And if you look back on your Ramadans before, you may notice that that's what happened. It's almost like Ramadan is the month of kind of really, really exerting ourselves, and then the month following where we kind of slow down a lot. And in that slowing down, we can let go of a lot of the good actions that we take, a lot of the benefit that we gain from Ramadan. Remember, Ramadan came as a training ground, like it's your opportunity to step up from where you were to taking one step forward, not to becoming the perfect Muslimah, because we're never going to become perfect, and we're never going to be able to achieve our idea of that perfect Muslimah where she's doing everything. Those checklists, sometimes they show you everything that you would want to do, but we can't jump up the ladder from the bottom to the top sometimes, or from the second step right to the top. And how I see Ramadan is that we take a step up. Every Ramadan I take a step up, and if I keep doing that continuously, by the end of Ramadan, by the end of my lifetime, inshallah, I would have reached the top of the ladder, but in a consistent and sustainable way. Because otherwise, when we try and reach the top of the ladder, we end up kind of falling back down again because it was so hard to maintain. We hadn't built it as a habit in our lives. We haven't, it doesn't fit with how our lives were before Ramadan. So it's almost like I'm doing it and then I'm going to go back to my life. Whereas when you take one step up the ladder, it's almost like this is my new life. And then next year I take the next step and that's my new life. And so that's how I recommend that you start seeing Ramadan, if you don't already, where it's the new me. Coming out of Ramadan, it's the new me, right? And so what do we want to take away in this new me? What is it that I want to do? Now, as you know, the purpose of Ramadan and fasting in the month of Ramadan is so that we may attain taqwa of Allah, right? So I want to talk about that, because if that's one of the biggest things we are meant to gain from Ramadan, then that's definitely not something that we want to let go of. We don't want to ping back on the taqwa of Allah, right? May not be able to maintain it at such a high level, or maybe we can. And that's why I've prepared today's session to show you how you could maintain it, because there's certain things that you don't want to lose coming out of Ramadan. And the taqwa of Allah that you're gaining is definitely one of those. So I'm going to show you how to increase it and how to avoid losing it, inshallah. Because it is, if Allah is saying that's what you're meant to gain, then you don't want to lose this, a precious gift that we have worked so hard on Ramadan to gain. So Bismillah, let me share with you the hadith that I want to talk about today in relation to taqwa, because there's many hadiths that relate to the taqwa of Allah. There's many quotes of the Quran, and this is the one I wanted to talk to you about, where the Prophet ﷺ said, the most common thing which leads people to paradise is taqwa of Allah and good conduct, right? And the most common thing that leads people to the hellfire is the mouth and the private parts. So we're going to examine both parts here, because having taqwa, continuing taqwa, like, taqwa is not just for Ramadan, right? That is just, you've increased in it. You've taken a step up in your taqwa. That's what you've done. You've taken a step up the ladder in your taqwa, and you don't want to step back down, because that's the thing that is going to be the best thing that's going to, the most common thing, best thing that's going to get you to Jannah, our goal. And losing it is going to be, or the things that threaten it, the things that kind of pull away at it. It's almost like the snakes when you're on the snake and ladder board. You're trying to reach up the ladder and the snake's pulling at you. So I want to talk to you about how we maintain the step we've taken, and we can continue to increase in it, and how we can avoid the snake that keeps pulling us down, right? So what is taqwa? Let me just define that. There's, again, many hadith that define taqwa, but I want to share with you this one, where Ubayd radiallahu anhu has said that, have you ever taken a thorny path? And Umar radiallahu anhu said, yes, I have. And then Ubayd asked him, so how did you travel along this thorny path? And Umar radiallahu anhu said, I rolled up my garment and was cautious as to where I would tread to avoid being pricked by the thorns. And Ubayd said to him, responded and said, this is taqwa, right? And what is important to take from that is that you're rolling up your garment, as in you're taking your precautions, you're being cautious of where you tread, but you're treading, but as you're walking on the path, you're being cautious, you're taking your precaution, you're being aware of the thorns, and your aim is to walk on the path but not be pricked, right? This is taqwa. How do we relate this to what we do, right? It really means to be aware of Allah before we take every step. Like when we are fasting, when we are, why does fasting help us increase in the taqwa of Allah? Because one of your desires is to eat and feel comfort from eating, right? There's we seek a lot of comfort from food. One of our desires, one of the hardest desires to control, and also one of our basic physical needs. Yet, when we try and control that, we have to it reminds us of why we're doing it. It reminds us of Allah and what we're doing and why we're going hungry. Because you're struggling with that desire, but as you're holding on to not, give in to that desire, you're reminded of Allah, right? That and many other ways. But as you can see, when you're fasting, you're more conscious of Allah, you're more patient, you're more careful. You want your fasting to count. It's Ramadan. You know that you're being rewarded, so you want to do more. You're thinking about your actions. You're more conscious. What should I do? Should I go on my phone and go on social media, or should I actually open my Quran app and read a little bit, right? So you're conscious. You're conscious of Allah when you're hungry. You're conscious of Allah at times when du'as are answered. You're conscious of Allah when it comes to your sleep, because you don't want to waste that time. So whatever you're choosing to do, you're thinking about Allah. You're thinking about earning the most reward. You're thinking about what will benefit you, and you're trying to stay away from things that will harm you. So when we're thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our choices, we're thinking about what we do, even what we think about. Like, am I going to just, waste my time thinking about, I don't know, problems that I can't solve, or, situations, or am I going to just, start having the dhikr of Allah? Am I going to actually just start thinking about Allah and remembering Him and doing it, dhikr of Allah? So we're thinking about Allah in our actions, in our thoughts, and even in our words, and what we choose to say. You're trying to restrain yourself. Might not always get it right. I've had lots of sisters saying to me, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm still shouting in Ramadan. So doesn't mean we're going to become perfect, but we're becoming more conscious and aware and trying. It's that cautiously trying to move towards what pleases Allah, right? It's that taking good action out of love and hope in Allah. And that there is what is your greatest gift out of Ramadan? Your greatest gift, well, as in asset, step forward, is that you're thinking about what step you take, and is it going to benefit you or harm you? Is it going to, please Allah or not please Allah? When you're staying up at night and you want to, earn, the pleasures of Allah and the reward of Laylatul Qadr, and, that's in hope of Allah. So you're taking all this, we're making all this effort out of hope of Allah, hope in Allah, and out of love for Allah. We want Allah, to earn Allah's love. So we're doing all the extras. We want to earn Allah's reward. So we're doing the extras. But so that is something you can continue out of Ramadan, right? It means you've got to keep thinking, when we let go, we choose to kind of find balance, or whatever we try and do, when the elastic band snaps the other end. What you've got to decide now is actually, what are the good habits that you've started in Ramadan that you want to keep up, right? So for example, you might have started doing your prayers on time. You might have started to pray your sunnah prayers on time. You might have started reading your adhkar more regularly, morning and evening, or you might have started tahajjud, for example. Now, these are all, but for praying on time, which we have to do, but we're increasing the acts of the sunnah, following the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and all of these acts, increase Allah's love for us. So choose now, before you leave Ramadan, before your elastic band pings back, choose now what you want to keep up. Remember, you might not be able to keep up how you've been going, but it doesn't mean you go back to how you were. Choose some things that you can maintain. What became a habit, what became easy, what you really enjoyed, because when you enjoy it, you're going to do it more. So it might be that you found a deeper connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in praying tahajjud. If you've enjoyed that connection, don't give it up, right? Keep, because you don't want to let go and go back to the old you. There's a new me coming out from Ramadan. That new me is thinking about what benefits me and trying to avoid what doesn't, that could harm us. So in making those choices and thinking about it consciously, you can maintain and continue to increase your taqwa out of Ramadan. Like now that you've taken a huge boost in it, why don't we keep increasing it slowly and slowly by remaining conscious, by thinking about our choices, by keeping that same mindset of, I want to keep earning Allah's pleasure. I want to keep increasing and doing the sunnahs of the Prophet ﷺ. I want to avoid the things that are not beneficial for me. So do I immediately go back to watching all my series, for example? Or maybe I balance it a little bit. I cut it right down, but I keep up what I've put in its place, where I was starting to read a bit more Quran, for example. So you're going to have to think about it, because if we don't think about it, you're going to go back to your default. You've got to give it a little bit of thought. What is the new you that is coming out of Ramadan? What is it you're going to maintain? And what was it what really helped you connect with Allah in Ramadan? What were the things that you did that really you felt a connection in? Keep that up, inshallah, right? Make a decision and don't leave Ramadan. Like before you start planning your Eid and focusing on all of that, first decide who are you coming out of Ramadan as? Because as I say, if we don't plan it, if we don't think about it, we don't make choices and commitments, then we will go back to default. And then what we've gained, we lose coming out of Ramadan. Like, yes, we've hugely improved in Ramadan, but then for the rest of the year, it will feel like, then people say, well, actually, I don't know if my Ramadan's been accepted because I've just gone back to how I was. But actually, we choose whether we go back to how we was. So are we going to choose to stay, with the, some of the good habits we've built? Or are we going to let them go and then say, I don't know if it's my Ramadan that's been accepted? Well, actually, no. Choose to maintain the good habits that you've built, inshallah. It is a training ground for you for the whole year, for your whole life. This is a new you moving into your life. So choose small, consistent steps that you can maintain, inshallah. Now, what takes us away? These are the snakes. What takes us away from having taqwa of Allah, right? So I'm conscious of Allah, I'm making right choices, I'm trying to avoid the things that harm me. What's on the other end of that spectrum with that hadith, right? The mouth and the private parts. In other words, pointing to our desires. How? Because when we're having emotional problems, that's when we get into a state where I'm so upset, I'm so frustrated, I've lost, I'm in such a bad place. Sorry, I'm going to say what I have to say. I don't care anymore, you know that. And then that's when your mouth, takes you away. Or even the private parts, less probably relevant for us sisters. But if we are in desperate need to feel love, again, the desire to feel love, we may then commit things that are sinful for us, but out of that desire, it is the desires that we struggle with, right? For us women, it is our mouth. For men, predominantly, it is the private parts, but vice versa. Men also can, misuse their mouth and their private parts equally, right? I used to hear so many hadiths about how, the greatest inhabitants of Jahannam would be women because of the way that they use their tongue. And I used to be so scared of that because at that point I was thinking I couldn't control it. I couldn't control it. And so I was fearful that that would be me. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because this is what really takes us away from having taqwa of Allah. It's when we're caught up in our emotional problems, okay? And that is going to happen. That has been happening through Ramadan, but you've just ignored them, probably. And after Ramadan, they might come back full force to your mind, where you become a bit consumed about how do I fix this and how do I resolve it? So what happens to you when you become consumed with your emotional problems? You enter an emotional fog. It's like you can't see clearly, you can't really think of the right thing to do. You can't see a way out. You're not really sure what to do. And it feels like you're disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like, you're not really feeling it. You're not really feeling close. You're not, people are saying to you, make dua, you need to turn to tahajjud, sister, you need to do this and do that. But you're not really, it's the right thing to do, but you're not feeling it. And that's because although we are never, ever disconnected from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it feels like that when we're in an emotional fog, right? So you'll feel disconnected. And that's why you've got that resistance and that hesitation to do what you know will help you, because you don't feel close to Allah in that moment. And therefore, or you're not even thinking about Allah, so you feel disconnected, and therefore you're not running towards Him as you would, right? You'll be, you lose hope in Allah when you're feeling, when you're consumed by your problems. You can't really see a way out. You're making dua sometimes, but you don't really see how it's going to happen. You can't really see that you're ever going to have a good life, or things are ever going to resolve itself, or that you could ever be happy. You lose hope in Allah. We become fixated on the problem. Like, the more you think about something, the more it grows. And when you're fixated on solving it because you feel so bad, it's like the only way I can get out of the fog is if I solve the problem. And so you really become fixated on the problem, but that just gets you deeper in the fog. And that's what we don't realize. Like, the more we just fixate on the problem, the deeper we get in the fog, the deeper we disconnect, the more we lose hope. It's really just a road that we don't want to go down, but we don't know any difference, so we do it. It seems natural. If I want to feel better, I have to fix this problem. And I'm going to say to you, no, that's not the case. And I'll show you how in a minute, inshallah. And we start seeing life through the lens of scarcity. Like, if you've ever tried to be grateful when you're in this emotional fog, it becomes really hard to think of your blessings, right? We know that the key to life is gratitude, right? And if you're grateful, Allah will increase you. But if you are caught in an emotional fog, because you're seeing life through the problems and what you don't have, everyone else has this and everyone else has that, and how come they can manage, and how come their husband is different, and how come their children, when you're looking at life through your emotional problems, you end up really looking through life through the lens of scarcity, where I don't have what I need, I don't have enough, I'm so fixated on my problems, there's no space to see any blessings, I can't see it. And then you feel bad because you're struggling to be grateful. And that's just because you've got caught up in the emotional fog. right? And then you start feeling like, well, I'm such a bad Muslim because look, I know I should be praying more and I'm not. And I know that I should have hope in Allah, but I'm not. I know I should make dua, but I'm not. And I know I should, be grateful and I'm not. And then that just sends us spiraling deeper into the fog. And a lot of times when people come and seek the help of us coaches, it's because they've got really caught in their emotional fog and they just can't see a way out. And when we're in this mindset, remember the hadith that we're looking at, where we sin with our tongues and our private part? Well, with this mindset, this is how you sin. Because when you're in that state, you push aside your thoughts about Allah. Like, you know what's right and wrong. Say, for example, you want to answer back to your husband, right? You know what's right and wrong, but yet you think, forget it, I'm just going to say it anyway, right? And in that moment, you're pushing away all of the knowledge you have about how it's better to remain silent, how it is better to be the first one to apologize even though you haven't done anything wrong. At that point, no, all that you know of right and wrong, you push it aside. But again, we're choosing to do that, and that's how we end up sinning, because we're pushing away our consciousness of Allah. This is how we push it away. And all we want to do, remember the desire part, all we want to do is feel better. I feel so bad right now. I feel so scared. I feel so frustrated. I feel so hurt. I feel so consumed and so anxious and so worried that I just want to feel better. And it's that desire, to feel better no matter what, when we are clouded, is what causes us to sin. Right? And that's how and then we justify our bad behavior. Well, I had no choice. You made me do it. It's your fault. If you didn't behave like this, sometimes, how many times have we said to our children, I only shout because you make me do it. If you listened, I wouldn't have to shout. No, sisters, we're accountable for our shouting, regardless of what your child does, right? Or your husband, we're accountable for ourselves. They're accountable for themselves. Allah is most just, but we're accountable for ourselves. But suddenly we start justifying our bad behavior and thinking it's okay. Because we can't see a way out anymore. We're so upset. We can't see a way out. We're so deep in it. We lose all sense of kind of, we let go of our sense of right and wrong. Not that we lose it, we let go of it. And then we tell ourselves, well, I don't care anymore. What are we not caring about? This is the opposite of taqwa. I don't care anymore about pleasing Allah. I don't care anymore about protecting myself. I don't care anymore about the future. I don't have any hope. And that's how we let go of having taqwa of Allah. Because we get caught in an emotional fog, and then we can't see a way out. And then we fall into sin and justify it, and we're having all of these thoughts because we're being driven by our desire to feel better. But sisters, when you do that, you and I know that our consciousness of Allah kicks in, because you've done it now, you've said it, you've actioned it, you've reacted, you've calmed down, but then you don't feel better. It never makes us feel better. Oh, it makes you feel worse. So this idea that if I just do it, I just say it, I just need this, I just need to feel better. When we're in that state, you're going to make yourself feel worse. You know it. You've been there. We all have. So how do we save ourselves? How do we save ourselves then? Right, so I'm going to give you some steps. Another hadith of the Prophet you all know is, when you're angry, be silent. Right? Because when we speak, when we're angry, that's when we lose our control to our desires. We're ruled by our desires now. There's ayahs in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, have you seen those who take their desires as their Lord, as their master? Right? Because now you're following your desires. And you just want to say it. You just want to feel better. You're just following what, your desire. And we lose consciousness of Allah, and we say things that we later regret. And I want to point to the strength of our desires, right? So in Surah Yusuf, when, he was being pursued and seduced, and he ran away. And do you remember he ran away and his shirt was torn from the back, Yusuf alayhi salam, and his shirt was torn from the back because he was running away. And yet then afterwards, he turns to Allah and he makes dua, even after running away. And he says, oh Allah, oh my Lord, I would rather be in jail than to do what they invite me to do. And if you do not turn their cunning away from me, I might yield to them and fall into ignorance. Now, this is a prophet of Allah, and he's already run away, but recognizing the strength of our desires, we mustn't take them lightly. You know them. Like, if you entertain them too long, if you sit with it too long, you might yield to them, right? So it's important that we recognize that and recognize what we're dealing with here. Like, you know what it's like now to feel that consciousness of Allah, but you need to also know what it feels like when you're being driven by your desires and you really just want to yield to them. You just want to give in to them. You just want to just do whatever is coming to mind. And that's when we fall into ignorance, because we know, but we ignore what we know. Now, sorry. So how do we reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So you're in this fog because you know how to make good choices and keep up those good actions. Your problem occurs when you get caught up in your emotional problems and you get into an emotional fog. So how do you connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Well, in Surah Ra'd, Allah tells us, and we all know this ayah, where Allah says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Only, nothing else, right? So whatever you're doing to fix your problem, only by connecting with Allah, by the remembrance of Allah, which is, how do we remember? By thinking of Allah, do our hearts feel secured? Now, isn't that really what you're wanting to feel better? We think we have to go and do that, do whatever we're thinking of, say what those words and react in that way and take those actions because we want to feel better. But, they don't make you feel better. Yet, actually, if we reconnect with Allah, if we turn to Allah, we remember Allah through the fog, like you're feeling the fog, you don't feel like doing it, but you push yourself anyway to do it. You reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then your heart will feel secure, right? You'll feel better, no matter what your problems are, no matter what anyone is doing. You can handle what they're doing and you can deal with it. But the first step is to deal with yourself. You've got to lead yourself first. You've got to calm yourself first. Otherwise, you'll become part of the problem. One person behaves badly, and then then you end up behaving badly and you become part of the problem. No, secure yourself with Allah, because your well-being comes when you're from being secure. That's the only true way to obtain true contentment. That feeling of feeling better? That's the only true way. But the key here is to have good thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we're having thoughts like, well, why did Allah do this to me? Why me? Why is it that I keep trying, but Allah keeps testing me like this? Those thoughts, they don't secure your heart. The key is to have good thoughts of Allah. And that means either in trusting Allah, so thinking about the promises of Allah, like He won't give you more than you can bear, or, if you're patient, He'll reward you. If you're grateful, He'll increase you. If you focus on changing you, He'll change your condition. You've got to trust His promises to you. If you make dua, He will answer your dua. So you need to trust those promises of Allah. Trusting that whatever He does for you, there is goodness in it. You need to trust in Allah, but you need to choose this, and you're going to feel a resistance, but you have to do it anyway. The other option is to lose control and lose taqwa. And that's the ladder you stepped up. You don't want to be stepping down that ladder. Also, another way of having good thoughts about Allah is having hope in Allah, like knowing Allah knows what you've done, and He's going to reward you, and He's going to give you better than what you're going through, and that, even if you give, He's going to give you more. And it's that having hope in Allah, of hope in meeting Him, that sometimes makes it so easy for us to do those difficult steps, like seeking forgiveness from someone, for example, right? It's when we have hope in Allah, hope now and hope in the future, hope for Jannah, hope for a better outcome. Also knowing Allah, like knowing, well, actually, I'm not perfect. I will make mistakes, I might fall, but Allah is most forgiving. Knowing Allah, knowing His attributes, knowing who He is for you. You might not always know why something is happening, but Allah is all-knowing. He knows. He's all-wise. He knows. And so knowing Allah, whatever thoughts that you're choosing, you may choose one of those, some of those, but you've got to choose. You've got to choose not to push away Allah and what's right and wrong. You've got to choose to have good thoughts about Allah in those emotional fogs, because that's when you're going to fall. That's when you're going to fall down the ladder. That's when you're going to be bitten by the snake. So just to conclude and finish off, my sisters, so to maintain taqwa of Allah, when you're going through your emotional, because there's no problem when I'm not in an emotional fog. When I'm not consumed by my problems, I'm good. I'm conscious of Allah. I'm making the right choices. I feel good. So I'm not doing anything bad to feel good, right? But when I'm feeling bad, when I'm I'm consumed by my problems, then number one, do the opposite. When you feel overtaken by your emotions, do the opposite. So remember, if you feel like screaming, stay silent. If you feel like following your child around the house and telling them off, go in the other room, leave your house, right? If you feel like walking away and packing your bags, maybe just go to bed. Do the opposite. So immediately resist that temptation. Don't follow it. Do the opposite of what you're thinking to do. Number two, reconnect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to calm your emotions. That means having those good thoughts about Allah. So as you're doing the opposite, now instead of consuming yourself with the problem and how bad you feel and how they do that to you, and what if I don't deal with this? What's going to happen in the future? Well, we don't know. But you're going to make yourself feel worse with those thoughts. So instead, take yourself away, do the opposite, and then reconnect with Allah with good thoughts to calm your emotions down so that you're in a calm place and you're choosing taqwa here as opposed to choosing disobedience. And then seek the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Make dua to Allah, like Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. He made dua, Allah help me. Like my emotions are strong, help me. I'm feeling pulled by them. I don't want to fall out of, I don't want to fall into ignorance. Help me. Seek the help of Allah, and then choose good conduct. Do what you do when you're in a good place. You choose what's going to benefit you. You avoid what doesn't benefit you, and you have hope that Allah is going to turn things around for you. And so if you can do that, inshallah, sisters, those simple 3 steps, when you're in an emotional cloud, when you're feeling, write these down, put them somewhere, learn them, memorize them, because when you're in difficulty, you're going to want to push it away. You're going to want to ignore it, but keep doing it so that you may avoid falling down the ladder you've already stepped up. And I pray that you leave Ramadan, having taken beautiful steps up the ladder, and may you be protected from the snake. And even if you get bitten by your own desires, you take your step back up and restore your position and keep taking steps up throughout Ramadan. Even after Ramadan, keep increasing in taqwa. Because if you can work on yourself and master yourself and keep, training yourself to deal with your desires, you're going to keep taking that step up the ladder. Imagine that, how amazing and beautiful that is. Ramadan has ended, but you're going to keep improving. Ramadan has ended, but you're going to keep feeling close to Allah. Ramadan has ended, but you're not going to lose what you gained. So I leave you there, my sisters, with that reminder. I pray that it's been beneficial for you, and I will put up the recording, inshallah, soon for you, so you can take down notes if you haven't already of your 3 steps, and share it, so we may share the khair. So that we don't go back down the ladder. I'll leave you there. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Sisters, I'm just going to check the coach, the messages. Barakallahu sisters, glad you found it beneficial. And Ameen, may Allah reward the SSS sisters and increase them and their family in goodness, and may He forgive them and enable them to continue helping and supporting the Ummah in the way it does. Ameen. Okay, sisters, we'll leave it there. Oh, Sister Dr. Amina, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, assalamu alaikum, jazakallah khair. It's so nice to hear you. Alhamdulillah, it's a blessing that we've missed during the whole of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, just like we wait for Laylatul Qadr towards the end of the month. Alhamdulillah, we had the blessing of you coming on at the end of the month. Alhamdulillah. I remembered why I enjoy listening to you so much, because subhanallah, your mind is just, you know, you have all these ideas, and you just from what you say, we become reflective and inspired and motivated, alhamdulillah. And one of the things that I was thinking is that we don't just become a better version, you know, a better me out of Ramadan. It's a me with a clean slate, because we've been pardoned. That's the promise of Allah. That's what the beauty of Ramadan, that we attain his pardon, his complete pardon. So, you know, that really gives us hope that it's me with a clean slate.
Yeah.
You know, how do we go out now after Ramadan with a clean slate? Do we want our slate to become dirty again? Do we want any marks on it again? You know, we become so vigilant. That's what taqwa is, that I don't want anything to come back on my slate again. You know, so just encourage the sisters
to know, sisters, that you are human, you will forget, you will make mistakes, and that's why we have this opportunity to be forgiven every year, every week, every day, because you may make mistakes and something might come on your slate, but you have a way back. Always take your way back. Be conscious to always take your way back. Inshallah. But Jazakallah khair, Dr. Amina, for that. Absolutely. It's so beautiful. It's like you're light on that ladder. You know, you've taken a step up and there's nothing dragging you back. Now the only way is up if you choose. And I pray that we all move up, inshallah. And we have an amazing year ahead, an amazing life forward, where we keep climbing up the ladder towards Allah, towards being with Allah in Jannah, inshallah, where we can see his face any moment we look up. May Allah grant us that. Or may Allah grant us the company of each other in Jannah, Ameen. May we enter Jannah together as we are in this world, remembering him together. Ameen. Okay, sisters, I'll leave it there. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.